David Cugino, and in today's book review, I've got a very good book that is strictly about, well, as crazy as it sounds, it's going to be similar to the one I did last week, but as crazy as it sounds, it's just about straight discipline. As crazy as it sounds, it's about straight discipline. So, the reason why I'm saying that right now is, honestly, when it comes to discipline, there is something that says in this book, I won't review it in the section, but there are thousands of ways to be successful, but the reason people do not do them is because they don't have self-discipline. So think about that for a second. When you're trying to lose weight, if you have the knowledge and know how to do it, but you do not have the discipline to not learn, but to do the work ethic and to put in the work to do it, it will not happen. So discipline, as I've said on this channel, with almost all the books I've read, plays a pivotal role in your life. Like, I'm 24 and I'm trying to do this, save as much money as I can while paying for stuff for this, paying my bills, working a little more at my job in order to do this, on top of my powerlifting career, on top of my powerlifting, and on top of my health, not my health and wellness, my self-betterment journey. All of that does take discipline, because I've been up, my work day starts at 6, but I'm getting up at 4, and then on my days off, I'm getting up at 4. Gives me so many more hours throughout the day, but that's not the point. The point is, there are times where I do not want to do this. And you will have times where to pursue a goal, you have to do things you don't want to do. And that is a part of life. Now, to put yourself in a situation to motivate yourself to do those goals is find a way to look forward to doing work. I look forward to doing this by simply just being like, alright, it's a cool hobby to have, my friends think it's cool. It's also nice to see how I'm documenting my life by filming these videos. Not only that, but I take pride in knowing that I'm choosing to work towards something where, as of right now, the return on investment is nothing. As of right now, really. I post it, but the moral of the story is you have to find a way to look forward to going to work. You have to perceive how going to work, how it's going to benefit you. Not really how it's going to benefit you, but how you're going to get that dopamine rush to continue to work, to go to work. So a good example is something called the 10-minute rule, where if you have to sit and think about it for 10 minutes, you have to decide whether you're going to do it or not going to do it. And the moral of the story is, and it's like with anything, if you have to decide whether you're going to work or not, and it has to take you 10 minutes to decide, you are probably not going to work. So in reality, when you start work, make sure it doesn't take 10 minutes. Just immediately start doing something before 10 minutes happens. And people call that the 10-minute rule because you will start, your mind tells you things, your mind's going to be, oh, we can do it tomorrow, we can do it this time. Sometimes I save things for tomorrow. The reason I save stuff for the next day is if I legitimately do not have time to make a good quality video. That is why I would save stuff for tomorrow. But before we get into more, I kind of opened a can of worms with that there, but the 10-minute rule, just try to make sure nothing takes you 10 minutes to decide, because you will eventually not do it if it takes you that long to decide to work. And look for a positive way to view work so you continue to work, and how you do that is through discipline. So the book I have for you today is The Power of Discipline by Daniel Walters. So now let's dive into the book here. Now, the first thing I have is when he talks about a positive mindset. So if you really think about it, with any work you approach in life, you have to approach it positively. So construction is really hard work, especially when it's cold, especially when it's really hot. So how you would view construction is you get a look at the thing that you built, which is amazing. You probably get to work with people that you like, and people need men like that. So the construction workers, when they look around and say, oh, I hate my job, I hate this, we're like, we need you to do that job. Like, people might not care, but the world needs you to do that. And honestly, there's a huge selection of people that probably do care that you're building that house for them, repairing that thing for them, building this part of the building for them, because they can't do it themselves. That's why they pay you. So that's how I would view a crappy job. But now listen to what he says about a positive mindset. The more time you spend operating with a positive mindset, the more you will become comfortable with it. The disadvantages are that the natural human tendency to hold on to bad habits will make it difficult to develop good habits. You might have a desire to get up on Saturday morning and start working on your goals, but because you spend the majority of your life sleeping in on Saturdays, you will have a hard time dismantling your status quo bias. The trick is to keep reminding yourself that the more you get up early, the easier it will become. It is also ensure that your hopes and dreams are never fulfilled, and in the long run, you will probably regret not taking action. People shouldn't be afraid of failure. They should be scared of regret. The feeling of looking back on your life and wondering what if will torment you worse than the feeling of having tried and failed. Fortunately, having some self-awareness about this will help you make better decisions in the future. So think about that for a second. You should be really scared of regret in your life, because eventually you're going to be too old to do something physical. You're going to be family's going to get in the way, so you can't pursue something else because you're busy taking care of them. You will eventually just lose the motivation. Or your job. This is great. You might move up in your job to where you won't have time to do stuff. And then you regret being like, oh, I should have did this instead of moving up in my job. Then that'll happen. So, and when I say then that'll happen, the reason why we do not like regret is because regret means now you no longer have time to do it. Years ago that you are going to do this, like you're going to pursue acting, you're going to start a business, you're going to make YouTube videos. I'll do it this time, I'll do it when this happens, and you told yourself that for years and years. And then when you actually have the motivation to do it, it's too late, because all your time is filled up, whether it's with your family, your job, or you're too old to do anything. Now when I say too old, that's mainly with physical stuff. Like, if I turn 60 and I choose to powerlift and I've never worked out a day in my life, I could do it, but I'm going to have to start off really, really small. Like, as in probably 120-pound bench, and then I'm going to be like, oh, it's hard, my body hurts, I'm going to hurt myself. Well, I should have started when I was younger when I thought about it. So that is how regret works. Now, the other thing is the more time you spend comfortable with it, the disadvantage is that the natural human tendency tend to hold on to bad habits will make it difficult to develop good habits. Now, when it says getting comfortable with it, comfortable getting up early. Like I said in my last video, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. So when he uses the example of getting up early on Saturdays, you'll get so used to sleeping in that it'll be a hard time dismantling your status quo bias, and the trick is to keep reminding yourself. The trick is to develop a good habit. The more you get up early, the easier it will become. The more you do it, the easier it will become. So that is something to really think about. And that is with anything in life. It's like practice makes perfect. Kind of like that, but the more you practice, the easier it's going to be to motivate yourself to practice. And then the easier it's going to be to practice even when you don't feel like it. So just think about that for a second. I need to get that on a shirt. Think about that for a second. And when I start selling merch, that's what I need to put on a shirt, maybe hoodies like that, stuff like that. Now the next thing I have for you is, this is when he talks about thinking that you're good at something when in reality, you're probably not that good. So think about this. If you ever get to the point where you believe you have mastered the art of being highly productive at all times, you have the ability to resist temptation, be careful. It could be true, maybe you have come a long way, but there could be the possibility that you've still got a lot more work to do. Research suggests that the more familiar you become with something, whether it's a skill or a subject, the likelihood that you will claim you are an expert diminishes. In other words, the deeper you get into something, the more you realize how much more there is to learn about it. So think about that. There's something in this book called the Dunning-Kruger effect, where there are a group of people who say they're good at something, and then they test it out, what they're good at, and then they put it in front of an audience. And I say the Dunning-Kruger effect. The Dunning-Kruger effect is to associate with people who are further ahead than you are in the specialty in which you wish to gain competence. Please note, this is not about comparing yourself to others, but about putting yourself in a position where you are exposed to continuous learning. Also, keeping track of where you are now and the goal you want to achieve will keep you grounded. And the Dunning-Kruger effect was an experiment where they took a group of people, I call it the effect because it was just the effect, but the experiment was they took a group of people to see if they were good at something, like they told themselves, hey, I'm good at it, and then they took their talents they believe were good at it and put it in front of experts who were actually experts at it. And they're like, nah, they're not that good, they missed this here and missed this there. But the experiment was they legitimately believed they were an expert and they were really, really good at something. Or they were really, really knowledgeable in a subject. So when he says here, the deeper you get into something, the more you realize how much more there is to learn about it. So the reason why that's brought up is because when you think you know something, you don't know how much you don't know. So like the exercise scientist Mike Israetel, there's probably not a lot of influencers that has his knowledge. But the reason for that is because he not only has a degree, he has spent most of his life researching that stuff. And if you watch his videos, he gets so in-depth with what he does. So like with getting bigger arms, for example, you can type in how to get bigger arms and people will mention an exercise, they'll mention how to do the exercise and stuff like that. But they won't mention the science behind getting bigger arms. They won't mention the effect of like what getting bigger arms will do. They also don't mention why you should have bigger arms. Well, actually your why depends on it, but they don't mention the use of bigger arms. So a subject which I'm learning about, like I'm trying to learn about muscles and how to make them grow, about hypertrophy. You don't know how much you don't know. And that is something to think about. And you don't want to be part of the Dunning-Kruger effect. You always want to be learning, you always want to be asking questions. And I've said this before in another book, you always want to act like you don't know something when you're talking to an expert. Act like you're the dumbest person in the room. Because there's always the smartest person in the room, however the dumbest guy learns the most. Now I understand how you learn is you repeat the same knowledge over and over, and also when it comes to learning, people say they don't have time to learn. There has been a study where if you take an hour and you spend a straight hour, no distractions, no phone, no TV or anything, straight hour learning something, and let's say it's 7 days a week. You take that knowledge that you learned for that 7 days and you repeat it on top of learning other knowledge, I guess you could say. Let's say this, you might learn something for 7 days, memorize it, move on to the next thing, and you spend an hour doing it every day. If you do that for a year, you are destined to be an expert in that particular thing. Now, yes, there's always more to learn, but you're destined to have so much knowledge. So much if you spend an hour doing it every day. And like in my last video, I brought up what Arnold Schwarzenegger said. There are people who have average humans have at least 3 hours of their day where there's nothing else to do. So they can spend that time, spend the first hour working out, and spend the next 2 hours or the next hour learning something, educating themselves, and then spend the third hour relaxing. So think about that for a second. Now the third and final thing that I have is about making excuses. Now, for those of you who actually do not know, there's an excuse to everything. There's always a reason to not do something in life. Now, you may legitimately not have the time to do it, but if you really wanted to do it, you would make the time. You would cut something out to make that time. But listen to what Mr. Daniel Walters says. I also don't think I mentioned at the beginning of the book. This book is by Daniel Walter. Just so you all know. If you are making excuses now, you will keep making them in the future. The perfect circumstances don't exist. Something is always going to be out of place. When procrastination seems logical, it's dangerous because it can apply to any situation. For example, if you decide you're going to quit smoking, once there's less pressure at work, you will never give up because there's always going to be some level of stress at work. When you make excuses, you are telling yourself that you are not capable of doing what needs to be done now. Think about that. When you make excuses, you are telling yourself that you are not capable of doing what needs to be done now. But if you are capable now, you are probably going to be incapable in the future. Now when he says, but if you are incapable now, you are probably going to be incapable in the future. As in, if you're not willing to do something right now, like with what I said earlier about the, what did I say earlier? Oh yeah, about regret. Yeah, if you're not going to start something now, when you have the time, you're probably not going to start it in the future. So when you say, I'll start it at this time, you probably won't. You probably won't. It's part of God's plan. I mean, He goes, I want you to do this, but if you have this attitude and this attitude towards what you want out of life, it will not happen. And that there are many, many, many stories like that. But if you are incapable now, you are probably going to be incapable in the future. That is when regret will happen. Another form of logical procrastination is spending too long on the planning stage. When it comes to how you are going to achieve your goals, it is important to plan. However, there is no need to overanalyze things. The more time you spend planning means less time spent doing, which increases your chances of never getting started in the first place. The key is to start working on your project and figure out the details as you go. So with planning, when you make excuses, you might think, alright, I'll do it, and then you plan. But then you continue to plan. And continue to plan. And then as you continue to plan, you finally say, hey, I got the plan all figured out. But then you don't pursue the plan. There is a lot of talk and not a lot of walk. There needs to be more walk than talk, as some might say. So this book, when it talks about discipline, saying is that to do anything you want in life, you have to be disciplined. Nothing's going to come easy. You're going to have days where you don't want to do this, like where you don't want to do stuff. And then you're going to think, well, you could be doing instead of working towards your goals. I could be sleeping right now. I could be watching, it is noon right now, and I have off the entire day. I could watch movies all day. I could sleep all day. But productivity, not only is it attractive to some people, but productivity will get you somewhere. Making this might get me somewhere. Maybe my channel, well, hopefully my channel grows. But productivity will get you somewhere. Why? Because you're teaching yourself to be productive. You're teaching yourself to work towards something and to not waste time. And also with my schedule's 3 on, 3 off. The third day you can have a day where you do nothing. I stuttered a lot there. You could have a day where you do nothing. And you could also have multiple days where you're constantly productive and continuously are productive, and then you're just like, you know what, I'm going to take the day off. You can do that. That is doable. But the moral of the story is to do whatever you want in life, you have to stay disciplined so you don't live in regret. And that is the takeaway for this video. Do not live in regret. If you want to do something with your life, do it now. Actually, that's the takeaway. Do it now. So overall, this is a very good book. It is strictly about discipline, how to overcome procrastination, and how to build better habits. But you do all of that through discipline. This is the power of discipline. I want to thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and to leave a comment. Thank you, and you all have a great day.